Gayathri Mantra. Om Bhurbhuvaswaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. This Gayathri Mantra has to be taken up for chanting at any time during the period of from 4 am to 8 am and then at any time between 4 pm and 8 pm. We should chant this mantra at least 3 times in the morning hours and 3 times in the evening time. We meditate upon the glorious splendor of the Vivifier Divine. May she herself illumine our minds. The ancient mansion of Hindu tradition and custom is built on the 4 walls of karma, janma, dharma and brahma. Regardless of its size, a house needs 4 supporting walls. It follows, therefore, that in the huge mansion of ancient Hindu thought, customs and traditions should have a point of meeting together somewhere. It is not possible for anyone to escape from the consequences of what one does knowingly or otherwise. We have to face up to the consequences of all our actions, whether good or bad. Clearly, therefore, the doctrine of karma stands as a cardinal principle that governs a person's life. One has to live and die with this principle. It is this karma which determines one's joys and sorrows. And it is through karma that we are endowed with this life itself, what is the secret of this janma. This body has been given to us so that we could undertake our karma, and therein lies the point that through the body we have to uphold dharma. When we conduct ourselves in keeping with dharma, we qualify to attain Brahma. The Gita proclaims that when dharma declines, God incarnates as an avatar. Truly, what we see in the form of a body is nothing but a manifestation of God herself. God takes the form of a human being to restore dharma. What we call creation is a manifestation of the cosmic principle. We also refer to it as nature. Whoever is born in this nature will certainly have the same attribute of this nature. Man who has the same qualities of this cosmic principle, this creation, this nature is offering all that is embedded in this creation to someone for some purpose. To whom one is offering it? Is it for the sake of one's own selfish ends? Or is it for the benefit of the fellow beings around him? It is not right to act that way. Whatever we do and whatever we may perform, if we were to be inspired by the feeling that it is for the Ananda of God, then it is bound to reach her. Therefore, the abiding feeling in us should be that whatever we do, we are doing it as worship of the Lord. This principle contains the very essence of karma. When an individual is first born from the mother's womb, this is a natural type of birth. This is natural state. This is the first birth as such. After we have been given the Gayathri Mantra, the dawn of second birth emerges in our life. What is Gayathri Mantra? It is the very quintessence of the Vedas. Verily, it is the mother of the Vedas. The meaning of the syllable Ga is Jiva. Gayatri is that which protects and fosters all life forms. We must realize, therefore, that on being given this Gayatri Mantra, we have been given a second birth. When we start chanting this mantra in conformity with certain rules and code of conduct, we will certainly be able to reach a state in fulfillment of this mantra. We arrive at a new stage, the third stage, which is called the Vipra. At this stage, we begin to chant the Vedas. Even as we try and understand and chant the mantras in the Vedas, we must realize their significance and start practicing the underlying principle and thus live the Vedas every second of our life. In this way, we will certainly succeed in attaining Brahma. It is only when we understand this Brahma Tattva and perform our actions accordance with this understanding can one be called a Brahmana. It is not by birth alone that one becomes a Brahmana. It is necessary that one's actions should correspond to this understanding. We really deserve to be called a Brahmana only when we understand the Brahma Tattva. It has been laid down that this Gayathri Mantra has to be chanted 3 times every day during the Sandhya of early morning, afternoon and evening. Sandhya means the conjunction of 2 stages of time. Pratha Sandhya is the time when transition from the night to the day takes place. Likewise, evening Sandhya, it is the time when the day slides into the night. Madhyana Sandhya is a time when the morning and afternoon are connected. Man is the embodiment of 3 gunas. These 3 attributes are not confined to man as such. Even time has these attributes. Time also has sattva, rajasa and tamo gunas. What do we mean by time having sattva guna? All these 3 attributes have 24 hours to go by in a day. Each of these 3 gunas takes up 8 hours by itself. That is, sattva has 8 hours, rajasic has 8 hours and tamasic has 8 hours. What are these 8 hours of sattvic time? When we designate the period from 4 am to 8 am, the intervening 4 hours are sattvic. In like manner, the time between 4 pm and 8 pm is also sattvic. These 2 stretches of 4 hours applies are sattvikas. The time from 8 am to 4 pm is rajasic. It is during this time that all life forms keep doing whatever has to be done by them. Not only men but also animals and the like do what is expected of them during these 8 hours. The factory worker, the farmer, the agriculturist and anybody that one can think of have to work during these 8 hours of rajasic time. So we find that every individual has an experience of this rajasic time. Then we have the time from 8 pm to 4 am during the night. This is the tamasic time. That is indeed tamasic. We know from our experience. The chief quality that is associated with this time is sleep. Sleep is being equated to tamasic in this analysis. It is during the sattvic time, like from 4 am to 8 am and 4 pm to 8 pm, that we should undertake our sacred and noble duties. This will sanctify our life. We should understand and appreciate how time has been divided for various activities, and only then can we realize the true nature of our existence. This Gayathri Mantra has to be taken up for chanting at any time during the period of from 4 am to 8 am and then at any time between 4 pm and 8 pm. Gayathri Mantra is absolutely necessary that we chant this mantra either in the early hours of the morning and or in the evening hours. During the midday also it can be taken up for chanting, but for certain purposes. When we look upon it as a sadhana, it is a morning and evening hours, which are sacred for chanting. We should chant this mantra at least 3 times in the morning hours and 3 times in the evening time. When we do this, we can certainly free ourselves from the fruits of our karma. It is said that a day's chanting takes care of all the ill effects of the day's karma. To illustrate this point, let us see an example. When we go and buy a certain thing on loan, not only does the loan amount increase, but also the interest on it goes up. On the other hand, if we were to barter something for the item at the shop, there is no loan to be cleared, nor is there any interest to be paid. When we have borrowed something on loan, then we find that whatever we have earned has to be given for repayment of the loan and the interest thereof. So, when we try and clear our debts as and when we buy a certain thing, then there is no loan nor is there any interest to be paid back. In the same manner, chanting Gayathri Mantra 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening hours before we go to bed would take care of all our errors in the form of loan and interest to be cleared off. By chanting this mantra, with this feeling, we can certainly transcend our karma. We can even reach the state of Nishkama karma. We can sanctify our life in this manner. Therefore, in order that we may understand the significance and reap the benefits of chanting Gayathri Mantra, we should know the significance of the morning and evening hours. There are those who feel that they do not have the time either in the morning or in the evening to chant Gayathri Mantra. We do have the time indeed. Where there is a will, there is a way, it is said. We do fritter away a lot of our time. A fraction of our time that we waste, if directed to chanting Gayathri Mantra, can purify our life. We do have a bath every day. So even as we bath, if we chant this mantra, we are not only chanting this mantra and deriving the benefits thereof, but it becomes a form of worship. So also in the afternoon, if we were to chant this mantra as we eat our food, the meal becomes sanctified. The food becomes a nevedya. We may or we may not chant any other mantra, but do remember that chanting the Gayathri Mantra is beneficial and we can experience this ourselves. Gayathri Mantra is the embodiment of all forms of Godhead, Sarva Devata Swarupam. Gayathri Mantra does not belong to any caste, to any sect, or to any religion as such. It is universal in its scope. Gayathri Mantra has 9 important attributes. Om, sound as a basis of creation, Brahman. Bhu, the earth, the gross. Bhuva, the atmosphere, the ether, the subtle. Swa, heaven, the region beyond Bhuva, the casual. Tat stands for that. The ultimate reality is simply referred to as that because it defies description through speech or language. Savitur stands for divine Savitri, equated with the vivifying power contained within the sun. Varenyam, adore. Bhargo, radiance, luster, illumination. Devasya, divine radiance or grace. Dhimahi signifies worship of or meditation on the Lord. Dhiyo yona prachodayat as the last syllable is a prayer. Therefore, in the Gayathri Mantra, there is Varnam, Dhyanam and Prathanam. Description, meditation and a prayer. All these aspects converge in the mantra. What goes on within us, depending upon the circumstances, are classified as follows. We talk of Sankalpa, and for this, we use the Manas or the mind. When we talk of the aspect of wavering, we have the Chitta. When we think of discrimination, Vicharna, we use the term Buddhi, the intellect. When we have the motive of selfishness, we talk of Ahankara or ego. What we have to understand that basically one entity is described as mind, chitta, intellect and ego. We will do well to understand the basic difference between the mind on the one hand and intelligence on the other. Mind is something that has got in its nature a divisive tendency. The intellect is beyond such divisions. Therefore, this intellect is associated with the principle of Advaita. When there is a division taking place in understanding the phenomena, we are assailed by the Dvaita Bhava. When we have this divisiveness in us, when we tend to see more than one thing, it is the mind that perceives this duality. The intellect tries to see the one among the many. What we should try and do is see the underlying unity in the diversity and not the other way around. This Gayatri is a sacred mantra which tells us about this underlying unity in the diversity of things. It is through this vision on unity that we can perceive divinity and sanctify our lives. In this world, we have mud or clay in one form or another. This clay can be one, but the forms that it can take are multifarious. Likewise, gold is one, but the ornaments could be many. Milk is one, but the cows can be many in description. So also the Atma is one, but the forms that it indwells are many. In the world around us, beyond the names and forms, there is no third entity. This world is nothing but the convergence of name and forms. One form, one name. Between these two, like the name and form, is the form that changes continually. Something which withers away and fades away and finally disappears. Though the form disappears, though the form undergoes change, the name as such remains the same at all times. Nitya Satya. It remains changeless. For example, we have given the name cow to an animal. The cow, the animal, will disappear with the passage of time, but the name will remain. Forms will disappear, but the name will last forever. The sanctity of the name needs to be understood properly. It will be difficult to try and identify a person in a crowd by means of his form. However, even in a huge congregation of people, if we were to call out the name of an individual, he would respond to the call. Through this name, therefore, one can recognize the individual. In the same way, if we take up the Lord's name as the basis, one can understand that forms in various hues and sizes have taken that name. If we know the name of the station, one can ask for a ticket for that station and undertake the journey. When we are not aware of the name of the station, how can we possibly proceed on our journey? Therefore, it is the name that is important and not the form as such. When we understand the full efficacy and the significance of this Gayatri, we will be in a position to understand the true nature, the underlying unity, and the Atmic principle dwelling in all different forms. Who is this Gayatri? She is the personified unity of the triumvirate divinity, Gayatri, Savitri, and Saraswati. Gayatri is also known as the five-faced divinity. The first face signifies Om. The second is Bhurbhuva Swaha. Tat Saviturvarenyam is the third face. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi is the fourth face. Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat is the fifth face. This is the Panchamukhi Swarupam, the five-faced divinity. From these five faces emanate the five life forces, Panchapranas. These five life forces are fostered and protected by Gayatri, and therefore she is called the benefactor and the protector. During the time she is protecting, thus she is called Savitri. We may have read about the story in the epics that Savitri protected Satyavan. Who is this Savitri? She is the Panchaprana Swarupini. This truly means that Savitri protects and guides those who led a life of truthfulness. When she tries to improve our qualities, she is called Gayatri. When she protects and fosters our word, she is called Saraswati. Therefore, this goddess protects the intellect, the life force, and the word, and thus in every way she protects the individual at all times. Today we have been given this Gayathri Mantra. It is verily a day when we are having our second birth. Purify and sanctify our second life, and then we become eligible for the third stage of Vipratva. From there we will proceed to the stage of attaining Brahma. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. How do one can attain this state? We can attain this if only when we have understood our own nature. When we ask the question, when do we become deserving to attain the state of Brahma? Then can we understand this. Before being married, a girl would be an ordinary person. After the marriage, she has a privilege of claiming half of whatever her husband has as a matter or right. What is it that marks out from the earlier stage of being an alien and the later stage of married life when she can claim something by right? That right is conferred to on her by a sacred thread tied to her neck, the Mangal Sutra. In the same manner, so long as we have not reached the state of surrender, we are an alien to the Lord. Once we have put the thread of surrender around our neck, we become one with her, and we have earned this right too, and can demand from God half of whatever she has. Therefore, through our own efforts, we should try and reach the state of surrender to God. How is it possible, we might ask, by chanting this Gayatri continuously, to reach the state of fulfillment and sense of feeling that we have reached something, that we have received something? There is an inner meaning in giving this Gayatri Mantra to young people. We have in this mantra the concluding words, Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. The meaning is this. Before we were given this mantra, we may have been backward intellectually or were a bit lazy. But now that we have been given this mantra, we become sharper in intellect, become more zealous, more enthusiastic, and certainly become more qualified for scaling greater heights in acquiring knowledge. Conclusion. Before the sun rises, everything is enveloped in darkness. Even as the rays of the sun dispels this darkness, so also the chanting of this Gayatri dispels all darkness and ignorance. The rays of the sun dispel the area of darkness. Darkness has no place where the rays of the sun reach out. So also, once our intellect blossoms forth, by virtue of our having been given this mantra, our intellectual rays will dispel the ignorance which has been persisting in us, will drive away all darkness and endow us with intelligence.
Oh.